Welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA Florida Chapter Study Group. This is August 17th of 2023. This is our 87th class. We're going to be working on techniques, two techniques today. We're going to be working on business cases, and then the second technique is going to be a surprise. Our mission here at the Tampa Bay IIBA is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower, instruct, and engage the BA community. Our community is worldwide. If you are anywhere in the world, you're welcome to be part of our chapter. You're welcome to attend our study groups, whether it's live or by recording. We have a variety of ways you can reach us. This is our Thursday evening study group from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We have past meeting recordings. We have IIBA website, 2 meetups, Zoom, Facebook, and 2 LinkedIn sites. We'll post these in the chat in just a moment. The past meeting recordings, you're going to be able to get more information on that in just a few minutes, but all of our past meetings, with the exception of a few that we had some technical difficulties, are available to you. So you can go back and relive history as we work through practice study questions for the BABOK and for the different certifications. Watermark Learning has been our consistent sponsor. They have given us a discount code. Tampa Space 21 will give you 20% off of any of their products. They not only have business analysis products, they also have a couple of other topics. In all of their topics, they have practice test questions, they have flashcards, they have some classes. I encourage you to look them up. The IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter is run by a volunteer organization. Here is Cliff, our president. You'll see him here in the Millennium Falcon. Yulia, our vice president of finance, she's right here. Caitlin and Priscilla are board members at large. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the Vice President of Career and Professional Development for the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter. It is my job to help you answer questions, refine your skills, present things that you want to learn about. So you're welcome to reach out to me through LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn ID. We're always looking for more people to be members of our chapter. If you're wanting to be a board member, we welcome you. We'll give you something to do that lines up with your interests. If you just want to volunteer for a few things, that's great. Anything that can help our chapter be better so that we can serve our people better, lifting people is what we do here. Bob Churchill is one of our CBAPs, and Yulia is another one of our CBAPs. They're both here. You'll see Bob here and Yulia here. They have earned their CBAP certification, the Certified Business Analysis Professional Certification from the International Institute of Business Analysis. Because they are here, this hour qualifies as an education credit so that whenever you go to apply for any of your certifications, you can claim this 1 hour as education credit. You are required for several of those certifications to have a certain number of education credits. So this benefits you not only now as you learn, but in the long run as you apply for different certifications. Bob also has his rpchurchill.com that has a variety of really interesting and informative topics. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. We've had a lot of people that have joined us that have reached their certification. Frank just reached his CBAP. Let me put that here. And I'm going to let you read what he sent me. I'm so excited. Frank lives in Africa. He's not able to join us live. It's the middle of the night there for him, but he uses these certification courses, these study groups to study for, and he has been able to earn 2 of his certifications using our certification study groups. So I really appreciate people reaching out to let us know that we were beneficial for them. And so we'll talk about Frank in just a minute. Let's see, we've already finished that one. Let me switch over to a different thing. Let's talk about Frank real quick. Frank, I'm just going to read this to you really quick. This is Frank Ado from Lagos, Nigeria. I hope you still remember me. How's everyone at the Tampa Bay IIBA study group? We've never gotten to talk to him, but we're friends because he has watched so many of our recordings. You recall that last time I said I would be attempting the CBAP exam in May. I'm glad to inform you that I sat for the exam last week and cleared the exam and am now CBAP certified. Thank you and your team for your support, even if I was an offline member of the class. With this accomplishment, the last 1 year by God's grace, I've managed to clear the ECBA and the AAC and the CBAP. I appreciate the value received from the study group, especially from the discussions. Many thanks and regards, Frank. So again, the discussions are a big way that people learn as we talk about why something's not the right answer, or I had this experience. We learn from real life, not just from what the CBAP, what the BABOK says. So please do engage us whenever you're having our conversations. Told you I would tell you more about Bob's website. He has very kindly put in many hours putting this page together. This is at rpchurchill.com, and this is the Tampa Bay IIBA study group. And not only does he give you all of the links, he gives you all the recordings by date with the most recent first, with their different topics, who presented what, and it goes through all of these. I mean, look at all this work. I'm fascinated that we've done this much. And if you want to know specifics about the different knowledge areas, he's broken it down by knowledge area, by chapters. And then here are the techniques. We're working on cycle 2 now. We've already finished cycle 1. All of these techniques have at least one recording about it. So if you want to learn about the technique, you've got 2 different recordings that you can access. We also have a guest speaker series that we went through, and we have people that talked about their roles in organizations and how it relates to business analysis, what they need from us and what we need from them. And this one in particular, I'm very proud of, the Yulia Petrenko, taking and passing the CBAP exam. This isn't very long ago. So she talked about what it took for her, what it was like for her to actually sign in, what her experience was, what surprised her about it, things that you need to know whenever you take your exam. So I really encourage you to pay attention to that. So with that, I'm going to go back to our presentation. We're going to talk about business cases, and Bob is going to present that, and then we'll see what comes next. Bob, take it away.
Let me ask one question before we start, and that is of Jim Simmons. Do you have your talk on item tracking ready to go?
Hi, Bob. No, I don't. I'm finally joining after a long period of elder care and finance things I've been going through this summer. So I'm starting to dip my toes back into this.
All right.
We welcome you back.
Thank you.
Always good to see you here. Sorry you were having difficulties. Let's make it happen then. And okay, so business cases. Business case is basically a cost-benefit analysis of doing or not doing something. So anything your organization might do, embark on a new project, acquire a piece of equipment or other organization, make a non-routine purchase, adopt new methods, change how you're doing stuff, enter a partnership, hire somebody, go into a new line of business, whatever. It's basically you apply all the techniques you would to any business analysis effort, and then you figure out whether it makes sense to proceed. So as you see in that top picture there with my standard loop diagram, usually the first 4 are joined to the last 2 and they're continuous. And you already know you're going to do the whole thing, so they're all together. You iterate forwards and backwards, you just go for it. But with a business case analysis, you are actually just doing the first 4 parts and doing the analysis of whether doing the actual work, the actual implementation, the actual change, and then any follow-on testing or whatever makes sense to do. So that's really all it is. It's a project to figure out whether you're going to do the project. And this happens in a lot of ways. 2 big ways I've done it are they both happen when I was doing FileNet-based business process re-engineering efforts in the mid-90s, like 93 and 94. And what companies did, one was Equitable Life in New York, and one was it was in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was John Hancock Insurance. And they brought us in to do a pretty decent discovery of their processes and cost-benefit analysis to see how much what they were doing, map their processes out, and figure out what we'd be able to automate away of their current operations, because they had this giant process that involved shuffling all this paper around and collating it into these special files. And it was a lot of work. It's very impressive the way they did it all manually. But what they were going to do in the new process is scan and index every document when it came in, and then handle them all electronically. So what you add to the existing process is a scanning and indexing step. And then what you take away is all the physical handling and hassle associated with all those documents. And they had us come in with our technology and analytical capabilities, and some other group we never saw did something similar to us. We ended up winning both competitions. So the larger customer company was doing a business case analysis, comparing us as a vendor, our analytical capabilities, and our economic analysis and technologies versus somebody else's. So that's one of many ways to do things. So let's go through this in terms that BABOK talks about. So they have 4 high-level bits, and it's really pretty simple. What you find in the BABOK with most discussions of techniques is they aren't very deep. They're only 2 or 3 pages each. What's going on is there are so many. And if you haven't seen them all, that's why it can get a little bit confusing. But basically, you do a needs assessment, so you figure out what you need to happen and what your outcome is, what improvement or new capability do you want. Then you do the analysis, then you recommend a solution. And one of the possible solutions you can recommend is that one or all of the options you're looking at don't make sense, so you don't do it. So that's why I set up here the force for loops intended use conceptual model requirements in design. These are your proposed designs, might be many of them. That's your business case analysis. And then actually following through is do or do not. So it's kind of like Yoda talking. And if you were looking at analyzing the alternatives, you want to talk in terms of 4 heading areas. So the scope is where you figure out the size, scope, and scale of the effort you're looking at. And that'll define what you do and do not include in the analysis. Also, what scoping analysis is good for is knowing where to break down big problems into little ones. So you make the cuts or division in ways that make sense, and all the resulting parts fit together logically to make up the whole thing. If you break a big problem down, it's easier to solve it as little pieces, assuming all the little pieces fit together in a way that makes sense. So the next consideration is feasibility. Now, this can take many forms. You want to understand whether it's technologically feasible, that is, whether it can physically be done at all, or whether it makes any sense from logistics. Like if you need to get, pine tar from Pago, it might not work out in a timely way. The major aspect of feasibility is usually going to be financial. We'll revisit that in a minute. One thing the BABOK talks about next is assumptions, risks, and constraints. And I always say assumptions and risks and impacts and simplifications. So I include that in my larger list of things you do during a project, which I then boil down into a more streamlined and stylized representation of doing a project. And the reason this one isn't included as its own phase with its own loop is that although it's listed near the beginning, it's really something you do all the time through every phase of work. So you're always looking at, what do I have data for? What do I have the information for? What do I have to assume? What's the risk of doing this, that, or the other thing, and so on. And finally, really, most of the decision is going to be based on whether it makes sense what you're considering on a monetary value basis. In that case, you're going to do cost benefit analysis, and you're going to use all the particular tools that are talked about in the financial analysis technique. And as you see, I linked to a discussion we've gone over previously It's linked on the page Thea pointed you to, and there are recordings where people have discussed in these study sessions. The main thing you need to think about for doing any cost benefit analysis is you want to think of not just of doing the work, but of the full life cycle. So what its capital costs are going to be, what its long-term operating and maintenance costs, and so on. So you have to make sure you include the right things from a totally holistic point of view. And after that, there isn't a super huge amount to say. So I will ask if you have any questions.
This
Okay. Go ahead.
So one of the things I always struggle with business cases is sometimes we get, well, a lot of times the business case is already done and there's already a suggested solution and maybe even a contract with a vendor that's on the table before the project actually begins its cycle of evaluating whether or not that vendor solution is the right one to choose. And so it sounds like it's kind of an art form between doing enough of the business case to actually set the project up for success and making those decisions during planning that you make during a project. What's kind of your experience with that handoff between business case and project?
Typically earlier in your career, and typically as an implementer, as I was for a lot of my career, this work and these decisions are already made before you get involved, right? So somebody's already figured out they're buying a solution. Like I worked for companies that made pulping lines. So they turn wood chips into pulp that would make different kinds of paper. And the sales team and the analysis team of my company worked with the customer to design a system and do the analysis to balance that across how much money they were going to be able to sell based on what they were going to make, and that drove the decision on whether they were going to build a new pulping line. Usually that was attached to a new paper machine also. So that's one part of it. So usually the work, by the time you see it, all that has happened. But a lot of times people say, well, we gotta fix this, and these people have done some things, let's get them in here and start attacking stuff. And you might find out during the course of the work that it doesn't make sense, or what you'll find out is, well, you know that doing a solution will save you money. For example, when the cost of natural gas was high, putting control systems that were automated on steel reheat furnaces always made sense. And within that, there were decisions about what kind of computer to buy, or what communications technologies to use that would affect things you still want to optimize and choose the best part, but those are smaller decisions in the larger context. So all these things happen at many levels at the same time. Makes sense?
It makes sense. Any other questions? Well, we're running a little bit ahead, so I'm going to tell you all a story about a business case then. Back in the ancient days before they had color, I was working for Sprint for the Executive Consumer Services Department. One of the jobs for that organization, for that department, was to send letters out to people that sent in complaints to the Better Business Bureau, the FCC, or the executives of the organization. The way that they did that, way back before color, is they used selectric typewriters, and they had to be perfect. They couldn't have a misspelling, they couldn't have a mistype, and so their requirement for the KPI was 8 letters a week. It took a lot of effort to get those letters, to have all the details that they needed to cite to respond appropriately, 8 letters a week. And as a business analyst, I wasn't a business analyst then, but I had a business analyst mindset. And my mindset was, this process could be improved, but how could it be improved? This was in '87. We had one computer in our high school. That was the whole computer class. We all used one computer. I didn't even get to take that class, but I knew what computers could do. So I went to the director of that department and I said, I want to bring this. I want y'all to do this. And she said, well, fill out a business case. I didn't have a clue what a business case was, but they had a form. I followed the form. I had them order, I proposed that they order 6 computers and 3 printers, all exactly the same. So we would have redundancy. We wouldn't have a lot of differences. It would be easy to do repairs if we had to do repairs. I proposed that I create a template and provide all the training, which takes care of all of those concerns. I proposed that I learn how to do the repairs on the printers, which I already was doing repairs on our normal copier, so I was the one. And then providing training, that was our biggest challenge. We got approved. They spent money beyond anything that I was accustomed to being able to be responsible for. We got everything in there. I got all the templates set up. I trained everybody that wanted to be trained. We had 4 people who said, we're about to retire in a year. I will never touch a computer. You can't make me. It went really well until everybody else started pushing out 30 or 40 letters a day, and they realized that their KPIs were going to go up. And they came to me and they said, would you teach one more class? I taught that one more class with great joy in my heart. And that department was the first department in all of Sprint who went remote. Because they learned the value of being able to do things systematically, just because I was looking at the process. But the business case was the first step in proposing the new thing. And as business analysts, we are in a unique position to see potentials and opportunities for improvement, because we see across different applications and across different projects. And we talk to people about how will this impact you and what are your pain points. We see things differently. And so you can bring those new things and it will move you up into a different position in the organization, even if it's just people go, well, she probably has an idea, or he probably has, the answer, or go ask them, they know somebody. But don't be afraid to bring these forward and look at what your company or organization's template is for business cases and learn what the difference is between capital expenditures and whatever else they use, depending on their accounting system. You need to learn the vocabulary to be able to speak the language. But because you know the processes and because you can also say this thing at eight a week costs you this much money, if we can increase it just half, you're going to save this much money, or you're going to have this much better output, or you're going to be able to provide this much more opportunity. And all those people, they all benefited from it. So I encourage you to learn about business cases and what it takes to get a business case through in your organization.
Do I dare ask, was it like a TRS 80 or a Tandy 1000?
No, these were actual IBM. They were green screen, but they were real computers. They weren't TRS 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, we thought we were hot snot, I tell you.
I used IBM PCs with Hercules graphics cards, green 2-color monitors, and 2 floppies.
Yeah.
To do artificial intelligence and interactive computer graphics. So
Any questions or comments about business cases?
there's also an inverse aspect of a business case. So I've seen meetings where there's some $500 problem and they get 10 people in a room to talk about it for 2 hours. They're paying them all $50 an hour. So you just spent $1,000 to solve a $500 problem. So be aware of that. That's a bad business case. Sometimes just make a decision and run with it.
Right. It's not worth the effort to solve the problem at that point.
Penny wise, dollar stupid is what we call it.
Yeah. So on that note, this is not really about business cases, but this is about planning your meetings. I've talked before about if you have a meeting, be aware of how much money you're spending in that meeting. If you can solve it with an email, solve it with an email. Teams chat is a great way to have a conversation. That way you don't have emails bouncing back and forth between different people. Teams chat, you have a conversation in the Teams chat and you can still solve a problem without taking a lot of time away from those people. You have 10 people in a meeting, you're paying them all $50. You just spent $500 for an hour. Did you get $500 of benefit from that hour? So, if you can not have a meeting, avoid those. Okay, any questions? Okay, do you know where to go in your organization to find out about business cases? Okay, then I would suggest that you, first of all, go to somebody who has filled out a business case, probably your boss. The administrative assistant for your executives for sure know where the business cases are. Go to your accounting department and ask, what is the process to get a business case approved? How does one go about doing that? Just ask the questions and be very clear. I'm not trying to push through a business case. I just want to learn the process. They will be able to tell you somebody, and you can, ask a couple of different people who understand the business case process in your organization, and they'll probably say, well, here's the URL, or here's an email that I used whenever I sent mine through, and it has an example of the one I used. So that's going to give you information to help you orient yourself as to using a business case in your organization. And realize every single organization does it a little bit differently. So even if you know exactly how it was in the last one, be sure you know how it is in the one you're at now. Any questions? Okay. Bob, we said this was potluck because we thought we had someone that was going to be presenting, but we weren't sure they were going to be showing up, and I don't think that they have. What are we going to talk about now?
I will do concept modeling.
Okay, let's talk about the technique concept modeling.
Just a quick thing. The recordings really helped. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, Cliff. Thea, Bob, thank you so much for uploading all the recordings and keeping them for years now. So we definitely appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's very gratifying. You know, this has been it's been going on for over a year now, and we're
Yeah,
like the
it really
foremost
helps a
sometimes.
lot. Yeah, and it's we cover so much, and it helps in all aspects of all aspects of business administration. I plan on doing my doctorate in business administration, so which is basically, yeah, like the extension of the IIBA basically. So definitely so like very excited and to be very excited to be doing more business research, covering all aspects of the CBAP, which we do in so intricately, and everybody adds onto that, and I really appreciated that. So I just wanted to say thank you and express gratitude a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to
Yeah.
me. Yeah,
And as
yeah.
a side note, if you guys watch a recording because you didn't make the meeting or whatever, let us know.
Yeah,
We'll give you credit.
thank
It just helps us, and it gets you credit too for the
Yeah,
attendance.
sure.
Okay.
And
Thank you so much.
especially whenever I'm talking, you can speed me up twice as fast. So that's got to be a win.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to get people watching, in substantially different time zones. So it's nice to know they're watching, and we want to give them credit for it too,
Yeah. And if y'all have questions about something that you heard, send me a link to what you were watching and ask me the question, and I will do my very best to figure out what you mean, and we can have a conversation. I've had a couple of conversations with students over the last couple of weeks, helping refine acceptance criteria, or working on what use cases are, or things that they were working on for their own education. I'm happy to do that for anybody.
Thank you, and you guys do such a wonderful job as well. So when looking at the CBAP chapter 1, chapter 2, and then going from the techniques backward to the variety of type of businesses that it applies to, small and medium enterprises, like our client our client really appreciates that. So they because of what we go into put into Watermark Learning, and we break down 18 out of 25, 20 out of 25, and work on this next week, so on and so forth. So that type of development process is really appreciate, and it really helps a lot. So thank you.
Good. It's good to know. Okay, anything else before we begin concept modeling? Okay, Bob, take it away.
All right, let's knock it out. So basically, a concept model is some kind of representation of an organization, operation, system, or product. It's about the nouns and verbs that describe what it does. So it's more of a qualitative description of what's going on. And you develop that by doing discovery, and I linked to one or more discussions of doing discovery. In my framework, I list it as the second thing. So if you have an as-is state, what you will do is build a model of your as-is state. You'll build a process map, identify state models, and put all that together to describe what's going on. That'll be your concept model. If you do not have an as-is state, if you're doing something new from the ground up, they might call that a greenfield project. Then your concept model will actually be an aspect of your design. So it include all the information, but the thing you're going to build. And in reality, even if you start with something that exists now and you're going to change it, the representation of what you have now and the representation of what you hope to have in the future before you build it, your as is and your abstract to be or your detailed to be. Those are all concept models. And there's one other aspect of concept modeling. You also do that process when you're researching things you might make a solution out of. So that's what goes into your to be kind of design representations. And they use vocabulary that's germane to the industry and the problem and the solution types you're considering. So I am the king of process modeling. I've spent my whole career doing that a zillion different ways. And here are some that describe various processes. So this is actually a process model of a border crossing somewhere on the southern border of the US for entities, either vehicles or pedestrians walking in from Mexico. In different kinds of people and vehicles are processed in different ways, and we have to make sure we can analyze what's happening in all the different areas and make sure we have enough facilities in employees available to process all the traffic that presents itself. We actually built a simulation tool that models all these different border crossings. We ended up doing 3 different versions of it that modeled specific things that happen on the Canadian side run by the Canadian government, and the Mexican side run by the Mexican government, and of course the US side of both borders with each country. So that's one way of doing it. And here's another. So here's an overhead picture of a border crossing. And here's kind of a conceptual model of what's happening. So we talk about what kind of vehicles are going where there are different facilities and types of inspections are and so on. And that's obviously not as detailed as this one up here. So those are all concept models. And then you get concept models that can describe the architecture of the IT system you're putting together. So and here are some other things. There are descriptions of the data and calculations and data items and how they all feed into each other, how they're laid out in memory and used for different applications and so on. And here's how you can think about them in different levels of abstraction. You can think about one of the things we've talked about, and the enterprise architect came on and talked about this. It's a friend that Thea found, and his insights really helped me understand things a lot better. He talked about how we kind of operate on 3 levels. So we operate on the kind of application and logic level. What is it we're actually doing? We operate on the business level. What's the organization and the people in the different departments? What are they doing? And down below, it's all hosted on different computers and different programs and different networks. So those are all things you can represent at those levels. And that's a description of the actual calculations as a picture and not in math. And that is a description of kind of procedurally what you do. But as you can see, all these representations look very different, and they're meant to describe different aspects of a problem. So concept model is not one thing. It is any representation that helps you understand something. And if you look at, I always had that picture of the blocks that make different letters if you look at them from different angles. So these are all views of the same problem from different angles, and they're all good to understand. I always say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so make as many pictures as you can and all the things you need to support those pictures. Any question?
I highly recommend using drawings for processes. If things that are difficult to understand are easier whenever you can put it in a picture. If you have a diagram, people can talk about it and say, this is what I'm talking about, and point to it. And whenever you get into some of these, you get 30 boxes on a page, number your boxes. That way you can say, this set, everything here this is set 1, 1A, 1B, 1C. I'm talking about set 1. I'm talking about box number 1C, or process step number 1C. It's a whole lot easier to have conversations whenever you can. It's easy to talk about the diagrams. Has anyone ever used a concept diagram or a process diagram that help people understand your processes?
Yes, all the time. We've got I've got a concept model that shows the difference between current state and future state in a very simple way, so that people can map what they're currently doing to what they'll be doing in future state. And we were able to, in one picture, communicate some moderately complex relationships between the various modules in the program that we're adopting with the process that we're using now, and map the various parts of the organization to that process model, so that they could tell which teams in the organization would be part of that future state model, and who to talk to about current state. So we could easily inform future state from current state by breaking it down.
I think that's great. Let's talk about just diagramming current state all by itself. If you've ever heard that saying, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Maybe that's not exactly the way to say it, but diagramming what people currently do, especially if you use swim lane diagrams, and you can just at a same level of granularity all the way across diagram what the current process is, people will become more emotionally invested in, oh, you really do understand what's going on. You do understand my job. You do understand the impacts. And then whenever you start diagramming future state, they are like, oh, here's the difference. I mean, they're more engaged in the whole process. So it will benefit you to not only document it, but document it in such a way where they can see it, they can see that you understand it, that you're invested in getting it right, that they can check it and say, oh, those are in the wrong order. Oh, you forgot this. Maybe because they didn't tell you, but still you want to get everything on there that's important. Also, having it diagrammed allows you to not only verify you have everything that you need to have the consideration, it also allows you to say, how long does this step take you? How often do you do this? And you can start quantifying those things. You also say, what are your pain points in here? What is hard? What could be done better? What do you think could be improved? You get the SMEs telling you what could be improved whenever maybe nobody's ever asked. One time I had a process that I had a person tell me they spent an entire week of production time just making a report on what they did that month. And I said, wait, the system's recording everything you do. Well, they want me to do it in a PowerPoint, and it takes, I've got to pull all these reports. And I said, okay, we can automate these things. And we cut it down to where she had to spend one day doing that thing that used to take a week. They gave her 4 days to do the things that were more creative, that she cared about. We started knocking out pain points. It was fantastic, but it couldn't have been done if I hadn't understood the process well enough where she was willing to invest in my understanding and put it on a diagram. I encourage you to consider learning what swim lane diagrams are, because you talk about the handoffs. You also put it in a way that people can see it. I have had many situations where I had people say, I knew what I did. I had no idea where the information came from or what they did with it. I just knew my piece. And that allowed me to be able to give them the idea that what you do is so critical to the overall process. We couldn't succeed overall if you didn't do your job well. And you're a critical part. Those people gain confidence. They felt like they had a voice. They moved up in the company pretty quickly after that, because nobody had ever let them know this is where you are. But a swim lane diagram really shows what those little handoffs are between the different lanes, what the importance is, how much money it makes, how much money it costs, what the timelines are. You can put it all in a swim lane diagram. Has anyone ever used a swim lane diagram? What's your favorite kind of diagram that you use?
I use process diagrams with people in different activities. So that's the same thing shown a different way. And what you're describing is the iteration within a phase. And a conceptual model to find out what's going on. You ask them to describe it, you document them, you let them review it. They tell you what you got right or wrong. Then the next discussion, and then you change things, right? Then when you're doing requirements, finding out their pain points, coming up with a solution that is iterating within the requirements and design phases in between them. So that's what you're always doing. It's all aspects of the same thing. And you're always trying to solve their problem.
Be aware as you're trying to solve people's problems, you're not going to be able to solve them all. You're going to be sensitive to them all, and you're going to document them all. And you might be able to solve some of them now, and some of them will have to wait till later. But as you're solving problems, look for things we call low-hanging fruit. It doesn't cost very much money to make a bigger impact. And if it improves the process substantially, it's going to make a bigger impact. So look for those things that you can promote to your management or their management possibly to help solve those problems. Yulia, you have your hand up?
Yep. I want to clarify concept model and conceptual modeling is the same, it's just play of words, or
Yeah.
it's different things?
Yeah.
The same.
Same thing.
Okay.
I dropped in the chat
Thank
a YouTube video that talks about the business analysis core concept model. And that I'll admit that model has kind of made my brain spin because I like things left to right. I want them very linear. I want to know what the beginning is and I want to know what the end is. The core concept model is round and it's got like 8 things and everything's connected and it's like, but she does a pretty good job of explaining what that means. And it's important to you to understand the basic core concept model for the business analysis, the test, to understand the BABOK itself. So I encourage you to take a gander at that video.
That sounds really useful, Thea. I kind of drove myself mad 1 week where I went through all of the core concepts and mapped the inputs and outputs to each other in a very interesting Visio diagram. And I realized it probably would look better in 3D in sort of a globe format because everything was, there were not inputs coming out of things that were at the left of the diagram and just flowing over to the right. I realized they were feeding each other in a cycle. And that's when that light bulb came on that these are all interrelated and sort of like a spiral going through time as you iterate.
It is. It is. One of the biggest challenges to help people understand what business analysis is we don't have a beginning and an end only. There are some things that have a beginning, at the beginning of a project, the beginning of gathering requirements, the beginning of a relationship, but it doesn't just end. We have to, every time there's a change, we have to go back and check all of our requirements. We have to check all of our assumptions. We have to check all of our stakeholders. We are always going in these circles that Bob has on the screen. We always have to go check, do we need to redo something? Do we need to update something? Do we need to inform someone? So we can't do everything just linearly. We have to do things in cycles. Our biggest challenge is to do things in such a way where people are never surprised by information. What we have to do is be sure that if something is on the horizon, it's like, I think this is going to become a problem. You figure out who you need to go talk to say, this isn't a problem now, but I think it could be something we need to watch just to be sure that they're aware, because you don't want anyone surprised. You don't want anybody going, why didn't we know? Well, if you can raise the flag, the little flag, a little bit early, people will have a lot more confidence in you and that you're keeping up on things and that you are the source of information for them. So you always want to, just say, I have a little bit of concern here. I don't think it's a big problem yet. You want to be very sure you're not saying the sky's falling all the time. You can't do that because then they won't listen to you. So you have to find a balance. Okay, we are coming up on time. We have not scheduled the next techniques. However, if you're interested in presenting one of the techniques, you have to do nothing more than show us what the BABOK says, give us some examples of it, and we'll be happy. But we need people to present techniques. Bob is going to be traveling and he may not be available to carry the show for us. We need other people to step forward for the techniques. The link that I gave you earlier is it has the list of techniques that have been presented in cycle 2. If you don't see a name there, that technique is available to be presented. So if you're interested in presenting any of those techniques next week or the week after, or any week after that, reach out to me through LinkedIn, tell me which technique you want and when you want to present it, and we will give you the screen. We are not asking you to be professional and perfect. We're asking you to maybe step out of your comfort zone a little bit, push yourself, and just let us know what the BABOK says. show us some examples that you found on the internet or from your own work, and we can have a conversation after that. It doesn't have to be full 30 minutes, but what we want is participation from our team, and you're part of our team. So reach out to me through LinkedIn and I'll be attentive to your replies. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. If you did attend last week and you, we forgot to take roll last week. So if you attended last week, put in the chat that you attended so we can give you credit, please. And we will try not to do that again. Okay, thank you so much. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.